Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the princess's guardian and got harem with Lucy? Part 1. Huge shout out to Shinobi of Greed for this story. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Lowering herself gently against the bedside of her eldest child, reached out and rested her hand on her daughter's forehead. A frown covering the woman's face as she felt the heat of Altier's fever. Herself was no type of doctor or held any sort of medical insight, but regardless, the woman could tell her daughter's condition was growing worse as the days went by. Of course tried taking her daughter to the nearest healer, who operated in the village down the mountain from where her family lived. However, Altier was quickly diagnosed with having too much magical power within a small body that couldn't handle it all. A condition that was told had no form of treatment or remedy. Yet as watched her only daughter shake and cough within an unconscious state, she tried to think that there was something she could do in order to save her daughter's life. "Mom." A voice called out in a hushed voice, which caused the woman to look over her shoulder. A rare smile gracing her lips at the sight of her youngest child Naruto, who was slowly walking into the bedroom with a large wooden bowl filled with water and a fresh washcloth on his shoulder. "I got this to help. Here, my sweet boy. Let me take that." Mumbled as she maneuvered to take the bowl from Naruto's hands, feeling that the bowl was filled with very hot water. Looking up to his mother with a worried face, Naruto grabbed the washcloth off his shoulder and presented it to his mother. "I remember you getting this for Altier before to make her feel better." Could almost cry from not only how sweet her son was, but also how observant as well. A trait he obviously got from his father. However, considering Naruto was a practical clone of his father, that wasn't very surprising. It honestly got to her slightly that her son took after his father in everything from looks, personality and even the type of magic he preferred. Yet she couldn't complain all that much, as Altier was just like her in every type of way. Was mainly just thrilled by Naruto, despite being 6 years old and 3 years younger than Altier. Displayed none of the early signs of magical sickness that his sister did at his age, giving the woman a small sense of relief that her youngest would not face the same battles as his sister. "This is a very loving gesture, Naruto, but remember we are trying to lower your big sister's fever. So right now cold water would work better." Explained as her hands began to radiate a cold chill from her ice-based magic. Naruto watched his mother with a mesmerized gaze, while remembering in the future to bring cold water to help his sister. Yet Naruto was quickly brought out of his daze the moment he felt a strange tingle sweep through his senses. "Dad's back," the young boy declared softly, as he had a natural way of identifying people's arrival before showing themselves. Knowing her son was always right about these things, waited a second before hearing footsteps walking through their house. So taking a long sigh and handing the damp washcloth to Naruto, faked the best smile she could. "Naruto, could you place this on your sister and watch over her for a minute?" More instructed than asked as she motioned her son over to his elder sister. Nodding his head, Naruto took a seat onto Altier's bed and gently held the washcloth against his sister's forehead. Watching as his mother slowly walked away and shut the door to the bedroom, leaving the two siblings alone together. "Hey Altier, are you awake?" Naruto mumbled in a hushed voice, while waiting in silence for a reply. Yet after a few moments of silence, Naruto hung his head. "I guess not, but when you get feeling better I've got a surprise for you." Naruto then moved his head to the door, ensuring no one was listening in on him. "I snuck into Dad's office again and started reading more of his magic books. I know I'm no good at ice make magic like you and Mom, but I'm really picking up on Dad's light magic." Hearing a loud slamming sound, Naruto slightly winced and kept his eyes on Altier's unconscious form. "Just don't tell Mom or Dad, okay? They both say I'm too young to start practicing any type of magic. I mean, you remember how much trouble I got into last time I was caught? No ramen for a month was awful." Shouting and other loud yelling going back and forth, Naruto took a slight pause. His ears tuned into the words being thrown around the best he could, but he couldn't make out much besides the volume of his parents' voices and their tones. "I'm sorry if they are too loud." Naruto began softly as he took the washcloth into the bowl to cool it down, before reapplying it to Altier's head. "Dad's been gone more and more lately, and he and Mom talk like this every time he gets back. Grown-up stuff, you know." Noticing the voices of his parents grow louder, Naruto closed his eyes. "I guess Dad's been doing something really important and Mom doesn't like it. She's more worried about you like I am. Still, I know Dad is just as concerned about you as me and Mom are. So you gotta get better soon. How funking long are we going to hide here, Minato?" The voice of shouted throughout the house loud enough for Naruto to jerk his head towards the door. "I don't care how dangerous you say it is for us. Your only daughter is dying." Tears building in the corners of his eyes, Naruto balled his fist and clenched his jaw. Yet the weak touch on his shoulder instantly made him switch his attention to Altier, who was looking up at her little brother with a weak smile. Why so glum? Did you get in trouble again, brat? Altair asked before erupting into a coughing fit. Altair? Do you need something? How can I help? Naruto asked quickly, which made the older girl laugh. You can start by taking this wet rag off me and not being so loud. Altair laughed through her coughing while pushing the washcloth away from her head. But mom says this will help you. That's sweet, but trust me, I'm fine without it. Altair replied as she pushed herself up into a sitting position. So tell me, what has my baby brother been into? Have you been sneaking into dad's office again? No. Naruto declared quickly, which made Altair burst into laughter. You're an awful liar, Naruto. But don't worry, I won't tell mom or dad. Just show me what you're learning already. Naruto nodded and held his hand out, then by furrowing his brow, he began to concentrate on the palm of his hand. Then slowly, but surely a small ball of yellow light began to grow within Naruto's hands. I've been reading dad's books on light magic and even rune magic. However, rune magic is still a little too hard for me. Watching the impressive display her brother was showing, Altair gave her brother a wide smile. Well, you are doing great for someone teaching himself. Naruto perked up at the compliment and slightly lost his concentration, which caused the ball of light within his hand to rocket forward and straight through the wall of Altair's room, leaving a wide hole that both children gazed at with wide eyes. Then before either child could process what had happened, both their parents came barreling into the room. Is everyone okay? Minato yelled in concern as he tried to look around the room, but seeing Altair awake, instantly swarmed her children. What are you doing up? You need your rest. Began before checking over her daughter's current condition. I'm fine, mom. Altair tried to reason before coughing with enough force to leave her chest in pain. You really are not. Replied before looking at Naruto. And Naruto, I recognize light magic when I see it. What were you thinking? Have you been getting into your father's office again? You could have hurt someone or yourself. Mom, don't be mad at Naruto. I made him show me his magic. Defended, which made the woman sigh. That doesn't make it better. Replied softly as Minato slowly walked over to his family and placed a hand on his wife. Why don't you take care of Altair? Minato began as he glanced down at Naruto with a soft gaze. I'll talk to Naruto about his magic. Nodded, but gave her husband a look that sent the message that the two of them were not finished with their prior conversation. Minato understood that and quickly scooped Naruto up into his arms before walking out of the bedroom with his son. I'm sorry. Naruto mumbled with a disheartened voice, while Minato sighed. I know you are, but I'm just as sorry. Minato replied as he slowly approached the door to his office. Much to the surprise of Naruto, as the room was practically always off limits. You're naturally curious about magic like I was at your age, but I haven't been around much to guide you. As Minato opened the door to the office, Naruto instantly took in the sights of his father's massive bookshelves that were packed with hundreds of different books. His eyes wandered to the dozens of picture frames and magical artifacts that were all trophies of Minato's past exploits as a wizard. All of which culminated in his father's status as one of the most powerful wizards within the country. A status that was recognized by his father's title of Wizard Saint. Your mother knows just as well as I do the danger my type of magic can hold on someone. So since she can't properly instruct your growth, she is against you learning magic without having someone to oversee your training. Minato explained softly as he placed Naruto down onto the large leather chair at his massive desk. Allowing Naruto a clear vision of everything that was placed on his father's desk. Then how did you learn? Naruto asked in confusion. Smiling softly and reaching out to a picture on his desk, Minato handed the frame to Naruto. Allowing the boy to see a much younger version of his father standing at the doors of a large building with dozens of other people standing around him. You see that short man right there? Minato asked with a wide smile, while Naruto nodded his head. That was my teacher and guild master. His name is Makarov. That guy there was my best friend Gildertz, and that jerk right there was the master's son Ivan. Hey, there's mom. Naruto chimed in as he recognized the woman instantly. She was actually the only person in that picture not a member of our guild. Minato explained softly as he began to reflect back to the past. She was actually a member of the all-female guild Mermaid Heel, but everyone else was a part of my guild FairyTail. Naruto's eyes lit up as he had never heard anything of his father's guild days. What was it like being in a guild? Minato gave his son an honest grin. It was the best. I miss my guild family every single day. Naruto looked at his father with a look of pure excitement. You think I could join a guild one day? Perhaps one day, but in the meantime I'm going to promise to be around more often to properly teach you magic. Minato revealed much to Naruto's utter joy and shock. Really? Naruto asked as he was bouncing with excitement. Minato nodded. Really, but you're going to follow my rules when it comes to magic. No more sneaking into my office or doing unsupervised magic around your sister. Of course. Naruto replied without even needing to think. Well, in that case we will start first thing in the morning. Minato revealed with a smile as he ruffled Naruto's spiky hair. "I'll make the next yellow flash out of you yet." Iraq 774. A year has gone by since Minato had promised to train Naruto to be a proper wizard. Yet the previous year had come with its own troubles that the Namikaze family wasn't prepared for. It all started with Altier's worsening condition, which caused her to seek help from the Bureau of Magical Development. This of course was a decision that led to the untimely death of Altier without even as much as a body to bury. The loss that left a major blow to the Namikaze family, as Minato began to be gone much more frequently, while had slightly shut herself away in her grief, leaving Naruto completely alone to process the loss of his dear older sister at such a young age. Yet things eventually changed when had somehow managed to take in two students, Lion and Gray, teaching both boys how to utilize ice make magic, which was something that seemed to slightly take the mother away from her grief and give Naruto a pair of older brother figures to help him as well. However, neither boy held a candle to the void that Altier's death left with Naruto. Still, Naruto tried to move forward and focus on his training in both light and rune magic, going as far to train more in secret by himself when his father wasn't around, doing everything he could to get strong enough to protect himself and those close to him, thinking in his childish head that if he was strong enough he could avoid losing people like he did his older sister. Yet this childish mindset eventually resulted in another incident where Naruto had accidentally lost control of his magic and nearly killed Lion, who was unfortunate enough to be near the young boy's line of fire. Regardless, Lion had survived the blow but did hold some resentment towards Naruto for the accident. However, when Minato returned and learned of what had happened, he decided to take Naruto with him for a small time. A decision that Naruto remembered wasn't a pleasant discussion between his parents. Yet eventually his mother agreed that Naruto accompanying Minato on his next trip would be beneficial for Naruto's training and would give some time for the tension between Naruto and Lion to calm down. At first, Naruto was ecstatic to not only spend time with his father and train, but even more so travel away from his home and see more of the outside world. Unfortunately, Naruto was slightly disappointed after 3 weeks of traveling with his father, as they spent most of their time staying hidden and doing all they can to keep a low profile. Naruto really didn't understand why his father was going so far out of his way to make sure nobody noticed either of them. Still, he was at least happy to see more of his father and get more opportunities to practice his magic. Yet today was different from the previous weeks, as Naruto and his father had actually made their way into a decently large town. Naruto himself didn't know where they actually were or why his father suddenly decided to bring him into a place filled with people after spending so many weeks avoiding any human interaction. Still, he was just happy to see a new sight and get new experiences, but was limited to what he could actually do, considering he had to stay close to his father and keep the hooded cloak he was wearing up to conceal himself just like Minato was. However, as Naruto walked by his father's side, the young boy noticed Minato was leading him in the direction of a tavern, which was a rather large building with dozens of people going both in and out, while a large sign in the shape of a toad hung over the entrance. Naruto, slowly walking under the sign, took note that the name of the tavern was the Gallant Toad. Minato, bending down at the entranceway, made sure to lock eyes with his son. "Stay close to me once we are inside and don't talk to anyone strange." Naruto, hearing the severity behind his father's words along with the look behind his eyes, merely nodded. "Okay, Dad." Satisfied with his son's reply, Minato stood to his feet and walked into the tavern with Naruto following close behind, allowing the younger of the two vision of the inside portion of the tavern and getting a grasp on just how busy the place truly was. Since if Naruto was just to blink and take the wrong step, he could easily find himself separated and lost from his father. Minato, on the other hand, maneuvered through the tavern like someone who had obviously been a prior patron, leading Naruto to the back of the tavern before coming to a rather large man who was standing as the watchful guard over a mysterious door. "I'm here to see the sage," Minato explained before he produced a coin into his hand from a requip space to show the man. The man merely nodded without saying a word and stepped aside, allowing Minato and Naruto both clear passage through, while Minato merely returned the coin back into his requip space in a shimmer of light. Then as the father and son duo passed through the door, they were greeted with the sight of a single man seated behind a large desk. The man, seeing both Naruto and Minato, smiled wide while standing upright and walking around his desk to greet his guests. "Minato, I was wondering when you'd show up. And I take it this is little Naruto." Minato, shutting the door behind him, triggered a chain reaction of runes to pulse through the room. Runes that instantly snuffed out any noise from the outside to be heard. "Yes." Naruto watched the man smile and look at him, noticing he was a tall and well-built man with fair skin, who had waist-length spiky white hair that was tied back into a ponytail, with 2 shoulder-length bangs framing his face. Upon his face were 2 lines of what Naruto assumed to be red face paint that started under his eyes and extended down his face. His attire consisted of a green short shirt kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that was visible at his wrists and ankles. Along with hand guards, a black belt and a pair of traditional wooden sandals. With the highlight of his outfit being the red haori with 2 yellow circles on each side. "Well, it's nice to see you, kid. Last time we saw each other you were just born." The man declared with a large smirk before pointing to himself. "I'm sure you're thrilled to finally meet the man you've obviously heard so much about." Naruto, remembering that he has agreed to not speak to strangers, shifted his gaze upwards to his father with a questioning gaze. "Who is this, Dad?" Hearing Naruto's question, the man fell flat onto his face with a rather defeated look. Minato, seeing this reaction, merely laughed nervously and lowered his hood. "Naruto, this man is another one of my teachers, like Makarov, this man is Jiraiya." With tears rolling down his face, Jiraiya looked up at Minato. "Wait, you told him about Maki, but not me. How could you, Minato?" "Well, you've never come up in conversation before." Minato tried to defend himself with an awkward laugh. Naruto, on the other hand, lowered his hood like his father and took a bow. "It's a pleasure to meet one of my dad's teachers." Jiraiya quickly compassed himself and merely laughed before standing upright once more. "Well, I can see your son has some manners. Here I thought he would be a spitfire like his mother, how's her? She's been better considering recent events, but has taken 2 students." Minato explained softly, while Jiraiya nodded. "Well, if your timing was slightly better you would have seen that brat Gilderts." Jiraiya grumbled in a bitter voice, while Naruto's mind clicked. Remembering said person was a member of the guild his father used to be a part of. Gilderts was here? And the building isn't in shambles or repair. How is that possible? Minato asked, which made Jiraiya smirk and rub the bridge of his nose. "I'll have you know silence runes aren't the only precautions I have set in place. After a few incidents I placed some runes that disables Gildert's magic the moment he steps anywhere near my tavern." Jiraiya explained with a sense of pride behind his words. "That's actually fairly smart. I'm surprised Makarov didn't think of something like that for the guild." Minato replied. "Well, considering the only people with rune magic strong enough to deal with that brat is you and me is probably why he hasn't." Minato nodded and folded his arms. "Well, I take it Gilderts came to you for the same reason I have." Jiraiya nodded and took a short sigh. "Always getting to the point, but yes. I've been gathering some information for Gildert's 100-year quest. Much like I've been doing for your very own quest. I mean seriously, between looking for dragons or for ancient relics linked to powerful beasts, more fierce than a dragon. And you two have picked a safer quest or teamed up instead of taking your own individual 100 quests." Minato rubbed the back of his head and lowered his gaze. "What can I say, Jiraiya? Our decisions were made by young foolish wizards. Ones who had grown into men who have got themselves pulled too far in to just back out." Jiraiya merely nodded in agreement as he walked over to a large painting of what Naruto recognized as the Fairy Tail Guild Hall. Then as his hands glided over the bottom edge of the painting, a clicking noise went off before the painting swung open to reveal a hidden safe. Jiraiya then placed his hand onto the safe and disabled the security runes before unlocking the safe. "All the same, Minato, I'm afraid I don't have a lot of information for you." Jiraiya began as he pulled a sealed scroll from the safe. 100-year quests are notoriously impossible tasks for a reason. Taking the scroll in hand, Minato quickly sent the information into his requip space for later. "Still, I appreciate this help. Things have been difficult as of late." Understanding the meaning that stretched past the surface level, Jiraiya gave his former student a somber expression. "I'm sorry for what happened to Altair. I wish there was something I could have done for her, but I could never find anything." Minato stayed silent, as the loss of his oldest child was the biggest failure of his lifetime. Yet Naruto was surprised to learn that Jiraiya had been helping search for a cure for his late sister. A small detail that made Naruto respect the man just a little more. "There is no need to apologize," Minato replied before taking a pause to hold his emotions in check. "The failure to save Altair rests completely on my shoulders." Jiraiya sighed. "Because that's a healthy burden to carry, but still, let's move to something else. I have a warning for you and your family." Minato lifted his brow. "What have you heard?" "I know you moved your family out of Fiori and have been living in hiding inside the land of Isvan." Jiraiya began while Naruto was confused at the man's words. Not knowing he and his family were in hiding and wondered just what they were hiding from. "I've gotten some reports of the demon known as Deliora running a rampage through the kingdom. Apparently no S-class requests have been issued due to the lack of wizards within Isvan. However, the demon was sighted heading near Brago. If I remember correctly, that's not far from where you're currently living. It's very close to our home." Minato began before looking at Naruto directly, making sure his son heard what he was about to say. "However, our house is quite isolated and I've set enough runes to keep out an army. Sora along with her 2 students are perfectly safe until we return." Jiraiya nodded as he would have known Minato would have set precautions in place. He would have done the same in his situation after all. That's good to hear. Any chance upon your return you'll hunt and slay Deliora? It could save a lot of lives. I'll see what I can do. Minato replied softly while resting a hand on Naruto's shoulders. He knew his son was slightly worried for her and knew he needed to lighten the mood and bolster his confidence in her safety. I might just send little Naruto here to fight the demon. He's growing quite adept with my light magic after all. That's quite remarkable. Jiraiya praised with a grin. That's not a magic that's easy to master. Any chance you'll have Naruto join a guild one day? I'm sure Makarov would be delighted to have little Naruto in his guild. Maybe one day. Minato replied as he saw the gleam in Naruto's eyes. When the time is right. For now though, let's get ready to head back home. I'm sure your mother has been missing you. 1 month later. It has been a month since Naruto had met Jiraiya and exactly 1 week since he had discovered his mother was dead. From what Minato had learned, his wife had used the forbidden spell Iced Shell in order to sacrifice her own body to in turn seal the demon Deliora in a casing of eternal ice. This was a last-ditch effort by her to save one of her students, Grey Fullbuster, who had challenged the demon in an attempt to avenge his family but was severely outmatched. The fallout of this situation left Grey and his fellow student Lion heading their separate ways on rather sour terms, while Minato had to figure out how to gather the pieces of his demolished family and what to do moving forward. Minato knew he couldn't take Naruto with him full-time as his quest was far too dangerous. He also knew he couldn't just leave his 7-year-old son alone to fend for himself. Minato was also fully aware that Jiraiya didn't have the time to properly provide for Naruto in a safe environment. The idea of taking Naruto to Fairy Tail did dance around his mind as he knew Makarov would take excellent care of Naruto. Yet that would put Naruto in the public light and in turn place Naruto in danger. So again his options were very limited, which was why Minato was currently standing with his son outside of a large estate. This was his last-ditch effort to preserve and protect what little family he had left. Dad. Naruto began, his voice hollow and broken, which highlighted on full display the trauma his son was still going through. Where are we? An old and dear family friend lives here. Minato explained softly as he bit his bottom lip. Frustrated at his own foolish actions and ambitions that had placed him down this path. You're going to stay here for the foreseeable future. Okay. Naruto droned out, his voice completely void of the energetic child he once was. Minato closed his eyes as he hated seeing Naruto like this and he hated even more the actions he was forced to take. So gliding around and kneeling in front of Naruto, Minato placed a hand on his son's shoulder. I'm sorry I have to do this, Naruto, but you'll be safe here. I know, Dad. Naruto replied as he felt a small lump in his throat. Just promise you'll be safe. A tear leaking from the corner of his eye, Minato brought his son into a strong hug. I promise I'll fix everything, Naruto, just hold on for me. Don't ever give up. Feeling his father's embrace, Naruto merely stayed still and silent, which caused Minato to pull back and pat his son on the shoulder. Come on. Let me go introduce you to your godmother. Naruto's interest piqued at his father's words and followed the man down a large gravel path. His eyes scanning the wide and well-kept landscape filled with beautiful exotic flowers and large hedge sculptures. This, coupled with a massive looming mansion in the distance, made Naruto wonder who his father was leaving him with. Whoever they were, Naruto could at least identify they were fairly well off, as the estate made his home look like a shack. Yet in comparison, a small house in a frozen tundra didn't really compare to a large estate filled with large meadows and breathtaking mountain views. Upon arriving at the massive double doors to the mansion, Minato merely knocked and waited in silence for someone to answer. Yet the father and son duo did not wait long, as almost instantly a man within a butler uniform answered the door. Greetings, what can I do for you, gentlemen? I'm here to see Layla. Minato explained in a matter-of-fact tone. I sent a letter in advance. She should be expecting us. Ah yes, please follow me. The young mistress is out back with little Lucy. Minato nodded and followed the butler, along with Naruto, who simply looked around the extravagant mansion with wide eyes. Since never in his life had he seen a house with such a beautiful and massive interior. However, upon arriving at the back of the mansion, Naruto saw a woman with blonde hair sitting at an eloquent outdoor tea table. She was a beautiful young woman with soft brown eyes, along with long blonde hair, which she wore in a bun, along with a lacy baby pink band with ruffles on its edges, which rested on her hair with her flicks and strands of hair framing her face. The woman had a rather voluptuous figure and was accompanied by a young girl who was almost the spitting image of her. Minato. The woman called out with joy behind her voice as she quickly stood up and made her way to greet her old friend. Layla. Minato replied softly as he was quickly hugged by the bombshell blonde. It's good to see you. It's been too long. Absolutely. Layla began as she shifted her eyes to Naruto. And you must be little Naruto. You look exactly like your father when he was your age. Naruto blushed nervously at the beautiful and outgoing woman, while Minato merely laughed. You're one to talk, Layla, little Lucy is practically your clone. I couldn't agree more. Layla spoke with pride behind her voice, while pointing to her daughter. Naruto, why don't you introduce yourself to Lucy? Me and your father need to talk about a few things. Naruto nodded and walked over to Lucy, which left the two adults alone. Something which caused their voices to drop to a whisper as Layla was the first to speak. Minato, what the hell is going on? You haven't spoken to me in over 8 years and out of nowhere you send a letter saying and Ultier are both dead and you need me to raise your son. Minato looked down with a defeated look. I'm sorry. I didn't plan for things to happen this way. Please don't make me beg for your help. Layla huffed in annoyance. Don't insult me by thinking I wouldn't take Naruto in, but I can only provide for him. If there is some danger I can't protect him, I gave all 3 of my gate keys away to former servants of mine to hold until Lucy comes of age to take them. I don't expect protection, Layla, just love him. He's been through too much as is. I've done everything to ensure no one knows about Naruto, let alone where he would be. You've really gotten yourself into a mess, haven't you? Minato nodded. Like you wouldn't believe. Over with Naruto. The young Namikaze came face to face with the daughter of his supposed godmother. A girl around his age with a beauty Naruto couldn't place into words. Hello, you must be Naruto. Mom said you would be living with us. I'm Lucy. Naruto was caught off guard by the girl standing before him with her hand out and a smile on her face. Everything about her was perfect and her voice was practically angelic. For a week Naruto had gone through the motions with a heavy darkness smothering him in his own depression. Yet just the tone of Lucy's voice and her warm smile was like a ray of sunshine blasting against his face. It's nice to meet you. Naruto replied back nervously as he reached out and shook her hand. Feeling a jolt shoot through his body the moment both blondes came into contact, which made them both break contact almost instantly and blush. I hope we can be friends. Lucy began as saw her mother turning to face her. I don't have any friends my age. Naruto was about to respond, but the sound of footsteps made both children see their parents approach. Layla was the first to voice herself as she gave a smile identical to Lucy's. I'm glad you two are getting along, but come with me, Lucy. Naruto has to talk with his father before he departs. Lucy nodded and walked to her mother's side, while Minato went over to Naruto, giving his last child a small hug. I'm sorry to leave so soon, Naruto, but you'll be safe here with Layla. Minato began before in a shimmer of light a pile of books appeared out of his requip space. I want you to read these books. They are everything you'll need to know about light magic and rune magic, so study them well and ask Layla for help. She's pretty brilliant. Okay, Dad, but when will I see you again? Frowning and kissing the top of his son's head, Minato lied through his teeth. Soon, I promise. Until then, stay here. Listen to Layla, read these books and only practice your magic where it's safe. Naruto nodded. Okay, Dad, I can do that. Iraq 775. A year has gone by since Naruto joined the Heartfilia household. In that time Naruto had acclimated into the estate in almost every way possible. The servants adored him, and Layla was like a second mother to him. Showering Naruto with love that slowly pulled him out of his own misery, but not a single person helped Naruto more than Lucy. Since within the last year the two became inseparable and were always with one another. In fact, some servants and even Layla began to tease the duo about being a couple. Something that embarrassed both children every time it was brought up in a conversation. Of course, there was one person that Naruto didn't get along with, as Lucy's father was someone who Naruto despised. Since Naruto wasn't a fan of how the man was business first and family second. To someone like Naruto who had lost a majority of his family, he saw Jude as a money-hungry asshole. Of course, the hatred was mutual, as Jude saw Naruto as nothing more than a nuisance and hated Naruto simply for who his father was. All in all, the past year was good. Except for the small fact that Naruto hasn't seen or even heard from his father in well over a year. A harsh fact that left Naruto's head swimming with possible scenarios of what could have happened to his father. Still, he knew his father pushed for him to never give up and study and practice his magic, which was what Naruto spent the majority of his time doing. The day was no exception to that, as Naruto was nose deep within one of his father's books. Meanwhile, his free hand danced around the air as he practiced writing different runes from memory. Naruto. Lucy shouted from across the mansion, which did earn the young blonde's attention. So as he removed his eyes from the pages before him, Naruto glanced down the hallway to find Lucy running to him with her left arm waving back and forth. You've got mail. His cerulean eyes went wide as he noticed the rectangular envelope within Lucy's hands, which of course made Naruto dash immediately to his closest friend. Is it from my father? I don't know, it just arrived and was addressed to you. Lucy explained as she eagerly gave the letter over. Naruto, wasting no time, ripped into the letter and started to read. Dear Naruto. I'm writing to you with some troubling news. For the last few months your father has practically vanished off the face of the planet. I've tried every outlet I could think of, but haven't been able to locate him. However, he did mention you would be living with Lail, and I'm sure you're worried about your father. I'm sorry kid, but I wanted you to at least know he's seemingly missing. I'll keep looking for him and use as much of my resources to find him. Until then I will keep in regular contact with you. Please stay safe and if you need me don't be afraid to reach out. Sincerely, Jiraiya. Naruto glanced over the letter several times, while the pit within his stomach only grew larger and larger. There was a return address for Naruto to write back to Jiraiya, but Naruto was currently a sea of emotions. Fearing something horrible had happened to his father and he had lost the last member of his family. Lucy, noticing the visible pain behind Naruto's eyes, frowned as she hadn't seen her fellow blonde this upset since their very first meeting. Naruto, what's wrong? Twitching at the question, Naruto looked up at Lucy. He was an abysmal liar and especially struggled to lie when it came to her. However, this was a topic he didn't want to discuss as talking about it made it even more real. Besides, burdening her with his problems wasn't something he wanted. Lucy was a bright and cheerful girl, but was also very empathetic. So he didn't want his woes to weigh on her as well. So for now he knew lying wouldn't work and she wouldn't drop her questions. He knew her better than that. So for now half-truth had to do. It's just a letter from an old family friend. Saying he wanted to keep in contact with me. Naruto explained as he rather quickly tucked the letter into his pocket. I should write back to him as I haven't spoken with him much. Maybe you could help me write a formal reply sometime. Of course. I'd love to help you Naruto. Lucy chimed with joy, which did slightly lift Naruto's spirits. Maybe we can write something after lunch. I had the cooks make your favorite ramen. Naruto grinned ear to ear and joined Lucy's side. Thanks Lucy, you're always so thoughtful. Blushing bright red, Lucy swayed back and forth before nudging into her favorite person. It's the least I can do. You always do so much for me. Naruto laughed and shook his head. You're crazy if you think I do more for you than you do me. Lucy giggled innocently. Then just call me crazy. Naruto smirked and bumped into Lucy as softly as he could. If you say so Lunasai. Blushing at the small play on her name, Lucy crossed her arms and gave Naruto a small but fake glare. That's not what I meant. Giving a sly grin and chuckling under his breath, Naruto didn't back down. All the same I think it's gonna stick lunacy. Iraq 777. It has been 3 years to the day since Naruto had begun living with Lucy and her family. 3 long years since Naruto had not heard even a whisper about his father or what could have happened to him. Naruto had stayed in constant contact with Jiraiya who had still found nothing about his father. A few times Naruto would try to question the man about his father's 100-year quest, but every time Jiraiya would deny him any information. Saying he would focus on finding Minato and that the 100-year quest was far too dangerous for Naruto. Reiterating many times over that he would not lead Naruto down the same road that claimed his father. Naruto was obviously annoyed by this, but chose to use Jiraiya's warning of danger as a motivation. Driving him to spend every waking moment improving as a wizard and growing his magic, as eventually he planned to head out and find his father for himself. Telling himself that if Jiraiya wouldn't let him be involved with information around his father's disappearance, he would find the truth for himself. Naruto didn't know yet how he would do it or better yet when he would venture out. Since he desperately needed actual experience. So the idea of joining a wizard's guild did come to mind. However, leaving Lucy and Layla behind was a painful thought as he adored both mother and daughter with his whole heart. So the idea of leaving them behind wasn't a pleasant one. However, Naruto was soon going to learn that the year of X777 was going to be anything besides pleasant. Year X777 Naruto and Lucy age 10. Happy birthday Lucy. Came the culminating cries of Layla and the entirety of the Hertfilia family's servants. All of whom were gathered around Lucy at a rather large cake, while a mound of presents could be seen behind the young birthday girl. Naruto himself simply smiled and clapped his hands from the side of the room, as today had been a rather fast build-up of stress for Naruto. Considering for the last several weeks he had been scrounging around to finish his gift to Lucy, which he had only managed to finish at the very last second. Still he had managed to get the gift finished and he was present for the party, which was more Naruto could say for Jude. Considering the man was working on his own daughter's birthday. Naruto could tell this slightly hurt Lucy as she was glancing around the room with a rather disheartened face. Yet the look of pain that filled her soft features rapidly shifted into a smile the moment her deep chocolate eyes met his crystal blue. A brief exchange that caused Naruto to smirk and wave at Lucy. The latter of whom was practically begging in silence for her friend to join her side. So since Naruto wasn't one to disappoint Lucy on any occasion let alone her birthday. He quickly moved across the party room to join Lucy's side. Happy birthday Lunacy. Naruto began in a hushed voice that earned a blush from Lucy. who playfully swatted at Naruto in response to her nickname. "Don't call me that on my birthday." Naruto simply chuckled and placed his right hand over his heart before giving a bow. "How sorry I am to offend the princess on her special day." Turning red as a tomato in embarrassment, Lucy was about to respond. Unfortunately, her mother beat her to the punch. "You two are so adorable. Tell me, Naruto, are you going to propose to Lucy as her birthday gift?" "Mom?" Lucy hissed in absolute dread as she believed her crush on her fellow blonde was a secret shared between mother and daughter. Yet that couldn't be further from the truth, as anyone with eyes could notice her fondness of Naruto. Well, anyone besides the blonde in question. Naruto, on the other hand, took notice of Layla's voice and body language as she sounded weak. Almost as if she was coming down with some sort of illness. In fact, the color of her skin seemed a little paler than usual and she appeared somewhat shaky on her feet. "Oh, I'm being scattered-brained, aren't I? Naruto is too sensible to propose at such a young age. He probably got you a promise ring." "Mom?" Lucy cried again from embarrassment. "Please stop, Naruto isn't getting me any jewelry." "Actually." Naruto cringed in response as his attention drifted from Layla to Lucy. A small rectangular orange box shimmering into his hands from a requip space, which he in turn presented to Lucy. A surprise. Taken back in surprise, Lucy accepted the gift. Meanwhile, Layla watched the small gesture with both hands clasped over her heart in joy. "You didn't have to." Lucy began, but Naruto was quick to cut her off. "No, trust me. I did." Eager to see what was within the box, Lucy lifted the top to reveal a necklace. Yet this necklace in particular was a small green gemstone with 2 metal balls on each side, keeping it fastened in place on a leather lace. "It's beautiful." Lucy gasped in disbelief as she lifted the necklace up, which caused several tiny runes to glow in response to her touch. "I made it myself." Naruto began as he pointed to the runes on the gemstone. "Those are special runes I inscribed with my magic that not only let me know where you are, but let me talk to you whenever and wherever you are." "How?" "But this, of course." Naruto replied as he pulled a necklace that was identical to Lucy's from under his shirt. Then by channeling his magic into the necklace, Naruto slightly smirked. "What do you think?" Hearing Naruto's voice not only through his lips but the necklace itself. Lucy could only give her best friend a look of amazement. "Naruto, this is the best gift ever." "I'd agree, it's quite thoughtful and ingenious." Layla commented with a smile. "You're definitely Minato's son." "Thank you, Naruto. I love it. Can you help me put it on?" Grinning ear to ear, Naruto maneuvered around Lucy and began to slowly place the necklace around her neck. "Of course, anything for you, Lucy." Layla's heart was full of love and happiness as she was overjoyed to see just how close her daughter was to the son of her oldest friend. It wasn't a simple friendship or some distorted sibling relationship due to how they were raised. More so, it was the slight budding of a love that Layla wanted to see blossom into a full romance when both were of age and ready. The true dream that seemed more and more like an inevitable future as the days went by. Yet as Layla's vision started to blur and her balance went off, a cruel truth was slowly starting to make itself known. That being the fact that she wouldn't be around much longer to see that future take shape. "Mom?" Lucy mumbled as she looked at her mom with concern. Layla herself could only hear distorted voices as her eyelids slowly grew heavy. Cursing herself for the action she had taken to leave her like this. Yet at least Lucy wouldn't be in her place. "Layla?" Naruto mumbled from behind Lucy as he subconsciously held tightly onto her shoulders for support. "Are you okay?" Layla mumbled before collapsing hard onto the floor, which caused numerous cries of concern. "Mom, Layla." Both Naruto and Lucy cried together as Naruto acted before anyone else by dashing to Layla's side and lifting her body close to his chest. His eyes grew wide as he felt how hot Layla's body temperature was against his hands. Along with how weak her breathing was as her chest seemed to have difficulties expanding, which showed Naruto how weak her lungs were at the moment. However, the worst of it all was the pain-filled expression that covered her face, as it was something he was all too familiar with. A sight that left Naruto thinking only one thing in absolute horror. "No. Not again. Please, not someone else." "Mom?" Lucy cried as she crashed onto her knees by Naruto's side. Naruto, seeing the tears pouring out of Lucy's eyes, felt like he was stabbed through the chest. He himself was no stranger to loss, and if it wasn't for Lucy and Layla he would have given up long ago. So right now Naruto wanted to be there for Lucy, but as he held onto Layla in his arms, he couldn't be strong. He couldn't be the pillar for Lucy that she had been for him. After all, he loved Layla like a mother as well. So in this moment of desperation, Naruto did the only thing he could do. The same thing he did when he heard the news of the passing of his sister and mother. He wept. A few weeks later. The last few weeks had been hell on earth within the Heartfilia household. After the incident on Lucy's birthday, it was revealed that Layla was terminally sick as she had developed a condition that no modern medicine or magic could remedy. Naruto himself wondered what force he had provoked to once again be placed at the bedside of a dying loved one. In his opinion it wasn't fair, especially to Lucy, who had practically shut herself within her room and cried when she learned of her mother's limited time left. Naruto on the other hand was somewhat used to this predicament, and even though it didn't lessen the pain in his heart, he could at least be at Layla's bedside, doing his absolute best to make the woman's final days as pleasant as he possibly could. Still, as he slowly dabbed a wet rag against Layla's forehead, Naruto had to fight and kill every urge he had to cry. "Naruto, that's enough. It's a kind gesture, but we both know it's not doing any good." Naruto took a hard swallow and placed the rag into the bowl on Layla's nightstand. "I'm sorry." Layla let out a weak laugh followed by a cough. "Don't apologize, sweet child. Your company is more than enough. I wish there was more I could do. And I wish I could see you and Lucy grow up, but life doesn't always let us have what we want." Naruto frowned at the woman's words and tightened his fists over his lap. It shouldn't have to be that way. Reaching out and resting her hand over Naruto's own, Layla gave her godson a small smile. "All the same, nothing can be changed. I made my choice to protect Lucy and your futures, but make me a promise while you still can." "Anything? When I'm gone, protect Lucy and continue to love her more and more every day." Layla began as she locked eyes with Naruto, trying her hardest to fight back the pain. "I know it's a selfish request because I know you're hurt as well, but ease my mind. Promise me that when I'm gone you'll fill the void in her heart with as much love as you possibly can." Fighting back the tears within his eyes, Naruto quickly nodded in response. "I'll do everything in my power to protect her and make her happy. I promise until the day I die I won't stop doing so. And no matter what you may say, you have my full blessing to marry Lucy." Actually, scratch that. I'm demanding you marry Lucy when you two get of age. That's not negotiable." Naruto was at a loss for words, but before he could even open his mouth to respond, the door to the room opened, revealing a woman around Layla's age with long green hair tied back into a ponytail. She was dressed rather poorly and carried herself in a very reserved posture. Yet the most striking observation Naruto noticed was the golden key within her hands. "Remy," Layla called out with care and a soft smile. "It's so wonderful to see you." Rushing to Layla's bedside, Grammy practically forced the golden key into the dying woman's hand. "I'm so sorry, Layla. This is all my fault. I brought Aquarius back, but I was too late." Placing the key onto her nightstand, Layla smiled softly. "It's fine, Grammy, you're not at fault. I didn't have to make the choice I did, but I don't regret doing so. Oh, and where are my manners? This is my godson and future son-in-law Naruto Namikaze. Naruto, this is a dear friend of mine who I had hold on to Aquarius's key for me." Grammy gave Naruto a small nod, while the youngest within the room was confused as to what Layla was talking about. Since Grammy almost seemed to take accountability for Layla's condition. "If only I could have made it here sooner, but me and my daughter live so far away." "It's fine, Grammy, how is your daughter doing? She should be the same age as my Lucy. Perhaps you could introduce the two so they could become friends like the two of us. But I'm just a servant." "Nonsense, you're my friend and never think differently." Naruto stood in silence and watched as Grammy began to sob, while Layla simply gave the woman comfort. This continued for a couple minutes before they went into a slight small talk. Yet their talks gave Naruto little insight as to what was going on. "I wish there was something I could do, Layla." Grammy began with regret filling her voice. "I told you it's fine, Grammy. I might not have long, but I won't leave any regrets behind. You should head back to your daughter, I'll have Naruto escort you to the train station." Layla explained as she gave Naruto a rather stern look. "He and I both know he needs to get some fresh air and away from my bedside. But what if you need something?" Layla kept her gaze sharp as she lifted her brow. "I do need something, and that's for you to make sure Grammy is escorted safely." Naruto sighed and nodded his head. "You can count on me, but I won't be long." Layla seemed pleased with the response and said her goodbyes to Grammy. Then, with both women giving each other one final hug, Naruto escorted Grammy out of the mansion and down the massive winding path of the estate, staying close to the former servant while both stayed completely silent. Naruto himself had forgotten how long of a walk it was from the estate to their private train stop, as he hadn't left the Hertfilia estate since his father had left him here. "So you're betrothed to the young lady?" Grammy began, which caused Naruto to twitch. "Not exactly, but Layla definitely makes it sound like we are." Naruto replied with a large blush, as he didn't hate the idea. Yet it was still embarrassing for others to ask if he was marrying his best friend. "Me and Lucy are just very close." Layla is very persistent. "Tell me, your last name Namikaze. Your father wouldn't be Minato, would he?" Naruto glanced over to Grammy. "He is. How did you know?" "Well, besides your last name. You're identical to him in every way. I remember your father visiting Layla a few times. Master Jude despised every second of his visits as he was always jealous of your father." Personally, I thought he feared the idea of your father stealing Layla away from him. Layla never really talks much about her past with my dad. Usually when I bring it up she compares me to him in some way and changes the subject. Well, if it's any consolation, I'm not aware of their past either. Still, I know your father and Layla were very close growing up, which makes it almost poetic for their children to be close. Naruto simply nodded and spaced out as he looked out into the distance as he started to question things more and more. Who exactly was his father? How was he connected to Layla in the past? Sure, Naruto knew about his father being a fairy tale wizard, but even that left major gaps of information. Did Naruto have grandparents? What kind of mission has he been on for so many years? Honestly, it frustrated Naruto with how many questions he could ask himself with little to no answers. Yet Naruto wanted those answers, and the people in his life like Layla and Jiraiya weren't giving him any. So Naruto knew he'd have to take the initiative to seek out the truth. Still, doing that would require leaving Lucy behind to travel, and with Layla's worsening condition, that was something he didn't know if he could do. Since he didn't want to leave Lucy alone. It would kill him to know he left her through that kind of pain alone. After all, he knew more than anyone the hardship the loss of a family member was. However, as Naruto was lost in his thoughts, the sound of metal piercing into something soft rang within his ears. Followed by a grunt of pain from Grammy as Naruto saw the woman to his side take multiple fast stabs to the side and back from an assailant from behind. Zoldio? Grammy gasped as she recognized her assailant as one of her fellow servants. This is all your fault, Grammy. Layla is dying because of you. Zoldio screamed with tears in his eyes as he twisted the blade one final time. Grammy started to sway back and forth before losing her balance. Naruto, on the other hand, moved in a flicker of light to where he was positioned to deliver a swift kick to Zoldio. In fact, Naruto's leg quickly illuminated with light magic, and in a flash he gave Zoldio a devastating kick to the man's arm. Using so much speed and power that Zoldio's arm slammed into his own chest, and the impact sent him rolling backwards. Naruto then, not wasting a single movement, caught Grammy within his arms and cradled the bleeding woman against his body. Quickly taking a knee as he held tightly onto the woman. Already feeling the woman's blood soak through his clothes and tightened his hold the moment he heard her shallow breathing. Grammy. Hold on, don't die on me. Naruto began as he looked over the woman with fear in his eyes as blood was pouring out of the woman's body at an alarming pace. Tell my Brandish I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. Grammy muttered as she coughed up some blood. No, you'll tell her yourself. We will find help. Naruto cried back, but as he felt the woman's chest lower and felt her movements grow still, he froze. Realizing she was dead in his arms. So biting his lip, Naruto simply placed the woman gently on the ground and stood to his feet. This is all my fault. I thought we were safe here and got distracted. Why would you do this? Naruto quickly moved his gaze to Zoldio, noticing the man had not moved from his earlier kick and was laying on his back. Yet as Naruto looked at the man's unmoving form, he could see the knife he had used to stab Grammy lodged in the middle of his chest. He isn't. Naruto muttered as he dashed over to Zoldio and stood over the former servant. Seeing that Naruto had accidentally kicked the man's knife into his own chest. Resulting in a killing blow as Zoldio was dead at Naruto's feet. Naruto began before pausing on his words as he felt like puking right then and there. As the guilt of realization had washed over him. I killed him. To Naruto, this couldn't get any worse, as death had been following him like a curse his entire life. First was the loss of his sister that crushed him. Then came the sacrifice of his mother that left him empty, and for all he knew his father could be dead as well. Of course there was Layla, who could pass any day now, but adding Grammy along with being responsible for killing a man was too much. Who would be next? Lucy. Naruto would rather kill himself than have her death on his consciousness. Naruto. A familiar and terrified voice spoke up, which made Naruto look to his side. Horrified to find Lucy accompanied by one of her servants, Spedo. Who was taking a protective stance between the two blondes as she used her hand to hold Lucy back and away from Naruto. Naruto himself was covered in blood and standing over one of two dead servants. A scene that left little to the imagination and instantly made Naruto look like the culprit of two very vicious murders. It's not what it looks like. Naruto began in desperation as his heart sank the moment he saw the fear in Lucy's eyes. She had never given him that look before and it shattered him. You stay away from her. Spedo screamed as she pushed Lucy back slightly to not only protect her, but also stand in the way to shield her eyes from the two dead bodies in front of them. Layla took you in, and this is how you thank her. By killing two of her most trusted servants and friends. By killing my friends. Taking a step backwards, Naruto was overwhelmed and slowly started slipping into a panic attack. As in the span of minutes he had watched someone die in his arms, kill a man and see his closest and most precious person look at him like he was a monster. Naruto tried to defend himself, but as he heard the sound of Lucy crying he broke. So panicking and afraid, Naruto did the only thing he could think of at that moment and took off in a flicker of yellow light. 1 week later. Naruto had been running for days, collapsed on the nights in exhaustion, and sobbed in desperation the remainder of his time. He was malnourished and hardly ate or drank anything. His clothes were worn and tattered and covered in both dry and fresh blood. Since he had had a few accidents in the last few days and roughed himself up in the process. It was also obvious to say that he hadn't bathed in several days and smelled absolutely putrid. Yet he did have a destination in mind. Since he knew there was only one place he could go for help. That of course being Jiraiya. Who was the only person Naruto had left to turn to for any sort of help. However, Naruto was slowly running out of steam and didn't know if he could even make the journey on foot. He knew the man's main base of operations was only a few more days worth of travel, but as he sat against a tree in the dark empty forest, Naruto was starting to think he would die before he ever reached his destination. Maybe I should just stop pushing forward. Naruto mused as he slowly started to drift into unconsciousness. I do miss Mom and Altair. The green light piercing through the darkness, Naruto glanced at the necklace resting over his chest. Finding a small spark ignited within his body as he knew what this meant. Naruto, are you there? Lucy's soft angelic voice came out of the gemstone loud and clear. Yet Naruto simply looked at the crystal with a conflicted expression. He had created them, so he was aware of how they worked. If Lucy channeled her magic into her necklace, then Naruto's would glow and allow her to speak to him, and vice versa. So Naruto didn't have to respond, as all he had to do was channel his magic, and Lucy's necklace would glow as well. Letting the girl know that he was at least listening to her. So taking a swallow and planning to say nothing, Naruto touched the necklace and pushed his magic through it. His heart almost skipped a beat the moment he heard Lucy gasp in response. Yet this was followed by both blondes sitting in silence, as neither spoke a word to each other. However, after a few moments Lucy was the one to break the silence. Did you really kill Grammy and Zoldio? Naruto didn't know how to respond, as he couldn't find the words. Since in his mind he indirectly killed Grammy with his carelessness and was responsible for Zoldio's death. So instead of making a reply he merely sat in silence. Mom didn't believe you did. She even yelled at Spedo. I've never seen Mom get so angry before. Naruto's voice hitched and Lucy heard the slight noise. There was a reason Naruto adored Layla, as she always loved and believed in him like he was her own son. She was making demands all week for people to run out and find you. She was even planning on hiring a guild to track you down and make sure you were okay. Naruto felt tears leak out the corner of his eyes. By all accounts he had made an awful lapse in judgment. He should have ran to Layla first. He should still be by her side with Lucy right this very moment. Mom passed last night in her sleep. Came the revelation from a broken Lucy, which completely shattered Naruto into pieces. I'm sorry. Naruto muttered as he felt the tightness within his chest that caused a sensation like he was practically impaled into the tree he was against. Since not only had he lost Layla, but Lucy lost her mother. She was alone right now, and Naruto wasn't there for her, which broke the promise he had made to Layla on her deathbed. Naruto, I miss her. Hearing Lucy's sobs through the necklace, Naruto stood to his feet. His balance was off and his entire body ached, but to hell with that. To hell with everything. Lucy needed him and he was going to be there for her. So stepping forward, Naruto was going to crawl back to Lucy if that's what it took. Yet as Naruto took a single step forward his vision blurred and his legs buckled. Then before he could even catch himself he fell onto the forest floor unconscious. Severing the link between himself and Lucy. The following day. Grunting and opening his eyes, Naruto's senses were overtaken by the smell of a fire and food. What the hell happened? Naruto groaned as his eyes slowly adjusted to his surroundings and he rubbed the side of his head. Though oddly enough he was in absolutely no pain, but still pretty hungry. Jello, he's awake. A young and energetic voice cried out as Naruto was face to face with a young girl no older than 5 or 6 with long dark blue hair. Well, give him some space, Wendy. I'm sure he's probably starving. A second voice spoke as Naruto saw a boy around his age with spiky blue hair and an eye-marking approach. The so-called Jello held out a bowl of some sort of soup while Naruto mainly paid attention to the several magical staffs on his back. Trying to figure out rather quickly if he was in danger or not. Who are you two? Naruto asked on edge as Jello gave Naruto a friendly smile. My name is Jello and this is my friend Wendy Marvell. Her healing magic is mostly responsible for why you're alive. Jello explained as he practically forced the food into Naruto's hands. And just who might you be? Naruto Namikaze. Naruto explained as he started to dig into the food. He didn't care what the food was or if it was poison. He was far too hungry to worry about anything besides if they had more or not. It's nice to meet you, Naruto. Wendy cheered in a happy voice, which showed a rather pleasant disposition. I'm glad I was able to use my magic to help you. I owe you a debt of gratitude for not only saving my life. Naruto held the empty bowl he practically inhaled into the air. But also feeding me. Think nothing of it, but tell me. Why are you out here anyway? Jelil asked, which made Naruto pause for a second. Since it was time for his specialty, half-truths. I was traveling to an old family friend. I know a fair amount of magic and was hoping to either get a place to stay or at least a way to earn some money to take care of myself. Jelil lifted his brow. Does this friend have their own guild? Not exactly, but he has plenty of connections. So I could work for him or have him get me into a guild. Naruto replied honestly. Jelil hummed and grabbed his staff, which almost instantly caused Wendy to pass out asleep. Something that made Naruto instantly go on edge, but Jelil quickly held his hands up. I mean no harm. I just want to talk without Wendy hearing us. Naruto narrowed his eyes and stayed ready to move on a moment's notice. About what exactly? You want the truth? Jelil asked with a laugh. I'm a prince from a parallel world who traveled to this dimension to stop a doomsday spell enema that my father the king has been using to drain magic from this world into our own. So to save this world and everyone within it, I've been closing as many enema portals as I possibly can. Unfortunately, I've also found myself as the caretaker of a young dragon slayer, and I've been trying to find a safe place to leave her so I can continue my quest. Naruto scratched his head at the information given to him. You're very trusting to someone you just met. That's also a lot to take in. Well, I'm a good judge of character and I'm incredibly desperate. So can you take Wendy with you? Make sure she is safe. Naruto folded his arms. How dangerous is this so-called enema that you're talking about? It would mean the end of your dimension and everyone within it. Jelil replied as Naruto didn't like that answer one bit. Since that meant Lucy was in danger and he wouldn't sit by for that at all. And what will you do once you leave Wendy? Probably join a guild to help get information on where other portals might be opening. And what if I had an alternative plan for the both of us? What do you mean exactly? Naruto gave Jelil a look of pure conviction. If this world is in danger, I won't sit back and do nothing. There is someone I care for more than anything and I will protect her. So here is my counter offer. The three of us will go to my friend Jiraiya, he can place us within a guild to keep Wendy safe. While in the meantime we use his connections and the guild connections to close these portals. Jelil rubbed his chin at the idea. That's not a bad idea, but I should mention something. I'll need to change my identity when we arrive at a guild. Since your world and mine are parallel, there is someone here in this dimension who looks just like me. So to avoid any issues I'd have to conceal myself. Naruto nodded. That should be easy enough. Naruto replied as he held his hand outward. Partners. Jelil quickly accepted Naruto's gesture. Partners. The boy from another world replied, as neither knew this was the start of one of the world's strongest wizard teams to ever be formed. A few days later. Jiraiya couldn't believe his eyes. He was still questioning whether or not it was some hallucination magic user trying to get the drop on him or if the person standing in the midst of his personal office was real. Considering he currently had Naruto right in front of him, who looked like he had honestly gone through hell. Yet despite the tattered clothing, dried blonde, cuts and bruises, with the most obvious need for a bath he had ever seen or rather smelt. For Jiraiya it was like looking in the past, as Naruto looked nearly identical to his father. Since Jiraiya himself had a very strong sense of deja vu seeing Naruto show up at his establishment exactly like his father before him so many years ago. Naruto? Jiraiya mumbled softly as he quickly stood to his feet. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be with Layla and her family? Naruto cringed at the question. I should, but something happened. Or the better way to phrase it would be that way too many things happened. Quickly balling his fists and looking to the ground, Naruto felt a lump within his throat. I killed someone. Jiraiya lifted his brow. Explain everything to me and don't leave any details out. Naruto nodded. Layla had been incredibly sick recently and I was at her bedside. An old servant named Grammy had come to see Layla and gave her a celestial gate key. After they talked, Layla asked me to walk Grammy out and I did, but when we were walking I wasn't paying attention. Someone named Zoldio stabbed and killed Grammy. I was caught off guard and just reacted on instinct by kicking him away, but when I kicked him I accidentally shoved his knife into his chest. I killed him and I haven't been right since. Jiraiya sighed and maneuvered around his desk. Like you said, it was an accident and you didn't mean for it to happen. The older wizard quickly bent onto his knee to be eye level with Naruto. Did you enjoy watching him die? Did it make you happy knowing you killed him? No, it makes me sick to my very core. Good, that feeling makes you human. Killing whenever it's accidental or not should never make you feel better. Jiraiya placed a strong hand on Naruto's shoulder and gave the boy a tight squeeze. While killing is wrong, there may come a time when you have to take a life again. So don't get accustomed to it, but accept that at times you have no option. It's a lesson you've had the unfortunate experience of learning at a young age, but that will make you stronger. But I didn't even tell you the rest. Lucy saw me right at the end of everything, which not knowing better made it look like I killed them both. What happened from there? The servant with Lucy was yelling at me and I was so overwhelmed, Jiraiya. I'd never seen Lucy so afraid. Afraid of me. So I panicked. I panicked and ran as far away as I could. And you came to me. Jiraiya quickly realized, which made Naruto simply nod his head and wipe the tears that were fighting their way from his eyelids. Then I learned Layla had died and I wasn't there for either her or Lucy. I wanted to go back to Lucy and sort everything out, but I passed out from exhaustion. I probably would have died, but Jelil and Wendy saved me. Naruto looked over his shoulder to the door. They actually both came with me and I asked them to wait outside as we talked. Since Jelil had told me something that made me realize I couldn't go back to Lucy. What do you mean? Naruto quickly told Jiraiya everything he knew, from Jelil being from another world to Wendy being a dragon slayer. He explained the dangers of the anima and why he wanted to help Jelil stop the magic from being stolen from their world. Laying out the plans that he and Jelil both came up with to not only ensure Wendy's safety, but the safety of everyone in Earthland. Jiraiya, taking a moment to process the very long list of information given to him, eventually stood to his feet. Shaking his head as he walked past his desk. Kid, you're not only the spitting image of your father, but it's terrifying how similar the two of you are. Seriously, what is with you two? Throwing yourself into dangerous secret quests for the sake of someone else. It's the right thing to do. Naruto replied with conviction behind his voice, while his eyes held a strong icy resolve behind them. And most importantly, if I don't do this, then Lucy will be in danger and I won't stand for that. Jiraiya shook his head and walked over to a small closet within his office. Regardless, I'll help you and your little friend. I can get you both information with my spy network and get you into Fairy Tail. I'll also speak with Makarov, as he is someone you can trust just like me. Naruto watched Jiraiya dig through his closet while scratching his head. My dad did speak often of him. Hell, I've wanted to join Fairy Tail for years. I even told Lucy once or twice about wanting to join. Well, it's high time you met Maki, but your friend Jelil isn't the only one using a fake identity. Jiraiya, waving a white mask in the air, wasted no time throwing it at Naruto. You're going to go by a new name as well. In fact, the only people who will know you're in Fairy Tail will be me, your two friends outside who won't tell a soul your real name, and Makarov. Looking at the mask, Naruto noticed it had two eye holes and was decorated with red and orange paint to resemble a toad. Why exactly do I have to use a fake identity? Jiraiya sighed heavily and leaned against his desk. Naruto, you're incredibly smart, just think for a second. Your father, a high-profile wizard saint, had taken a mission that I refused to give you details on. Because that mission spiraled your father into so much deep shit that he placed his entire family into hiding. Hell, just think, kid. Why was Layla the person Minato left you with? He could have taken you to Fairy Tail with Makarov. However, if people learned who you are, they would have gone after you to get to Minato. I'm getting stronger. Naruto replied as he gripped tightly onto the mask in his hands. Not as strong as your dad's enemies. I mean, do you want to protect the Tertfilia girl? Cause if anyone even sniffed out a connection between you, Minato and her, well then her life is in just as much danger. So you're gonna go by Menma and your little friend will go by the name Mystigan. That's the only way I'm helping you. Naruto merely nodded in response. I understand, Jiraiya. From here on out, unless it's with someone who knows me, I'll be Menma. However, in return I want to know about my father's disappearance. I want to know what quest he was on. Kid, I promised your dad I would never tell you anything. I'll help and support you any way I can, but I won't let you follow his path. For now, just focus on one world-ending crisis at a time. You're only 10. Naruto didn't like the answer he was given, but he could at least respect Jiraiya's choice. After all, the man was only looking out for Naruto's best interest. Well, since we've talked everything out, let me introduce you to Wendy and Jelil. I think that would be a good idea, but I have one more thing to give you. Jiraiya explained as he turned back to his closest and pulled out one more item. It's something that used to belong to your father. Naruto, watching Jiraiya pull an item out, merely raised his brow. That was my father's. Grinning like a madman, Jiraiya nodded and tossed the object right to the young blonde. It was, but he left it with me, so now it's yours. Gazing at the black and crimson sword within his hands, Naruto slowly pulled the sheath open to see the near spotless blade, showing that someone had obviously been keeping it in excellent care. That's not just any sword either, brat. It's a sword used specifically for enhancing and casting rune magic. So don't let it go to waste. Naruto simply nodded in response and pulled the sword back into the sheath with a small smile. Thank you. Magnolia. Walking down the main street of Magnolia, Naruto did catch a few glimpses of people eyeing him. That was somewhat expected considering his current company. Wendy was the most normal of the trio, but even still a young child with eyes as wide as saucers as she pointed to everything she saw did draw a few looks. Yet the most standout in the trio was definitely between Naruto himself or Gel. Since they both were dressed in their new disguises that were given to them from Jiraiya. Starting with Gel, or how Naruto was to refer to him when speaking to others, Mystigan. The young boy from Idolas wore a dark blue cloak and his arms and legs were mostly covered in bandages. To conceal his identity, he also donned a dark blue bandana with a silver forehead protector and a green mask that obscured the bottom half of his face. Of course, his look was completed by his numerous magical staffs that were still strapped to his backside. Naruto, on the other hand, wore a sleeveless black shirt with a high collar and matching black pants. Over his shirt he had a sleeveless grey flak jacket and matching grey metal arm and leg guards. Like how Gel kept his many staffs fastened to his back, Naruto kept his sword strapped to his own backside for ease of use. Finally finishing his disguise, Naruto wore the porcelain white mask with the toad markings from Jiraiya. "This place is so amazing." Wendy cheered as she quickly turned her excitement to Naruto and Gel. "Are you excited to join Fairy Tail, big bro?" Smirking under his mask, Naruto felt a small feeling of joy at being referred to as an older brother. Something which Wendy had started doing to help her get better at not accidentally referring to them by their actual names. "It should be interesting. What do you think, Mystigan?" "I have heard rumors that Fairy Tail is rather wild. So I would agree to it being interesting." Gel replied back in a calm voice. "Hey, I think I see the guild building in the distance." Wendy shouted as she pointed to a large building at the edge of town. "Let's go be wizards." Naruto laughed the moment he watched Wendy take off running, while Gel quickly followed to ensure she didn't get lost. Leaving the blonde walking a little behind the two at his own pace. His life was changing at a rapid pace, but this change was all for one person. So slightly pulling down the collar of his shirt, Naruto fished out the necklace he had tucked underneath his clothing. He had a million things he wanted to say to Lucy at this moment. Yet at the same time, with the path he was walking and the supposed danger of even being around him, Naruto knew distance was what he needed to keep. Still, he couldn't just forget about Lucy, as he truly loved his best friend. So even if he was going to keep his distance and even if she hated him, Naruto channeled magic into his necklace but remained silent. He didn't have anything to say and he honestly couldn't even find the words. However, at least she would know he was alive and still holding on to the one thing that kept them linked together. Then after a brief second, Naruto cut the flow of his magic, ending the link that he was sending to Lucy. "It's foolish to even try. For all I know, she probably threw her necklace away." Naruto mumbled softly as he was about to place his necklace away. Though his necklace glowing for the same brief moment he had made Lucy's glow did make Naruto smile. Knowing that she might not have spoken either, but she was at least keeping the last thing that linked them together as well. Outside of the Fairy Tail Guild. Standing at the massive doors to their future, Naruto, Wendy and Gel all stood in momentary silence. Their imaginations each playing out a different scene as they listened to the loud bustling guild. Trying their hardest to figure out just what they were in store for. "I'm a little nervous," Wendy admitted softly. "You'll be fine, Wendy. You have me and Menma with you." Gel replied in a calm and reassuring voice as he gave the small wizard a pat on the head. Beaming at the older boy with a smile as bright as the sun, Wendy quickly felt at ease with the boy she saw as an older brother at her side. "That does make me feel better." "Well," Naruto began as he placed his hands onto the doors and pushed them open. "Let's rip this bandage off and go join a guild." Upon pushing the doors open, the side of chaos came on full display for the trio. Finding numerous individuals either engaged in high-spirited drinking and partying or quick-tempered exchanges of fists in an all-out fight. Naruto himself blinked underneath his mask as the fairy tale he was currently looking at was nothing like his father's stories. "Now I'm starting to wonder if this place will be safe for Wendy," Gel mumbled under his breath. "I mean, can't judge a book by its cover, right?" Naruto added in with an awkward laugh. "All the same, we should find the master." Naruto nodded and walked into the threshold of the guild first as Wendy followed his lead and Gel stood protectively behind the dragon slayer. Yet as he walked, a scene to the side caught his attention. "You two never learn, do you?" A commanding voice shouted loudly. "Seriously, how many times do I have to scold you?" "We are sorry." Two terrified voices cried back, which earned snickers and laughs from other onlookers within the guild. Glancing at the voice, Naruto saw a girl with crimson red hair who was dressed in armor scolding two boys. One of the two was a boy around his age with pink hair and a scarf, but the other was someone Naruto recognized instantly as his mother's old student Grey Fullbuster. The same student his mother gave her life to protect. Naruto himself didn't expect to run into someone from his past within this guild, and honestly, with knowing the role Grey played in Ur's fate, Naruto didn't know what to feel at the moment. Yet Naruto wasn't the only one caught off guard by the trio, as Wendy kept her eyes on the boy with pink hair. Since with her heightened sense of smell, she could smell the scent of a dragon on him. Meanwhile even Gel was at a loss of words, as he could only look at the girl scolding the boys with an aching heart. Since he was staring at the alternate version of someone who was very dear to his heart. Well, you three look new. An unfamiliar voice pointed out with a small laugh, which broke each child out of their thoughts. Naruto and Gel both looked down, while Wendy stayed eye level with the speaker. All three finding themselves looking directly at the master of fairy tale, Makarov Dreyer, whose reputation as a short old man definitely lived up to itself. We are new. Wendy giggled in a happy and excited voice as she gave the master a friendly smile. Me and my big brothers are here to join Fairy Tail. Is that so? Well, lucky for you, I just so happen to be the master of this guild. Wendy's eyes grew wide at the revelation and Gel remained unmoved by the information. Naruto on the other hand knew the man instantly from his father's old pictures and stories. Unlike the guild, Makarov had at least on first impressions been like his father's stories. A short but cheery and kind old man who oversaw everyone within the guild. Master Makarov. Naruto suddenly spoke up as he pulled out a letter for the powerful wizard to read. Here is a detailed letter from the sage. Makarov merely tucked the letter into his clothing and nodded. Jiraiya already told me a few things. Let's head into my office. Following the master into his office, Wendy and Gel took a seat across the wizard saint's desk. Naruto on the other hand simply placed one hand onto the door and used his free hand to click his finger. Rune magic. Silent binding. Naruto mumbled before the entire room was instantly engulfed in runes from every corner. Makarov watching this display from his desk let a small smile slip. You're really his son, aren't you? To command such powerful rune magic so effortlessly. Can you do this old fool a favor and remove your mask? Grabbing his mask and pulling it down to reveal a face identical to his father's, Naruto merely sighed. I wouldn't say effortlessly, but no one should interrupt us. Well, Naruto, I'm overjoyed to finally have Minato's son coming to my guild. Even if the circumstances are under some complications. It's nice to meet you as well, Master Makarov. My old man told me a few stories about you and this guild. Makarov grinned ear to ear. Well, perhaps we can swap stories one day. I'd love to hear more about you. I can even tell you a few things about your parents. Naruto felt a tightness within his chest as his family had quickly become a sore subject within his life. Yet he couldn't lie, Naruto wanted nothing more than to learn about his parents' past. Especially if it pushed him in the direction of finding his father. I would like that. Makarov nodded and turned his attention to the other two in the room. Well, I've handled most of the paperwork and have set up a place for you three to live. Wendy, you'll be living in the Fairy Hills girls' dorm. I am also going to have a very respected wizard from the guild be your mentor as you adjust. Her name is Urza Scarlet. Gel slightly flinched at the girl's name but kept his thoughts to himself. I can't wait to meet her, master. She's strict but will take care of you. Now Naruto and Gel, or should I get into the habit of calling you Menma and Mystigan? Naruto held his hand up. I prefer Naruto. Just call me Menma around others. I have no preference, but you can call me by my name in private as well. The boy from the other world added. Well, Fairy Tail is lacking a male dorm like we do for the girls. However, I've set each of you up with a nice apartment of your own. The rent is cheap and Jiraiya has covered the first few months. Still, you'll need to take jobs to keep your apartments. That's fine. I was planning to take several quests to gather more experience anyway. Naruto admitted. And I know Gel is planning to do the same. Grabbing a small device used to stamp guild marks onto new members, Makarov approached the three children. Well, let's make it official. Where would you like your guild marks? Gel, exposing his right bicep, bent down and allowed Makarov to give him a dark blue Fairy Tail insignia just below his shoulder. Wendy following next eagerly stepped forward to get a guild mark that was identical to the one Makarov had given Gel. Leaving Naruto as the final one to get a guild mark. So following Gel and Wendy's example, Naruto got a guild mark below his right shoulder. However, unlike the others, his guild mark was pitch black. We are finally Fairy Tail wizards. Wendy cheered with excitement as she gazed at the mark on her arm with wonder and amazement. This is the best day ever. Well, let's go introduce you to everyone. Makarov proposed with a wide smile, but paused when he noticed Naruto slightly hiding his face with his mask before grabbing the door. Actually, if it wouldn't be an issue. I would like to speak to you in private. Naruto explained as he left the door open for both Wendy and Gel. Not at all, my boy. Wendy and Mystigan go mingle with the guild and I'll be out shortly to show you all around. Gel nodded and silently led Wendy out of the office, which left Naruto and Makarov alone in the office. This caused a blonde to close the door once more and remove his mask. What can I do for you, my boy? Naruto sighed and his fingers pressed ever so slightly harder onto the mask within his hands. I want to know more about my father. Makarov merely kept a neutral expression. If that's all, don't worry. I already said I'll tell you all kinds of stories about his time in the guild. That's not what I mean. Naruto began as he felt a lump behind his throat, finding it harder to get the words out as he spoke. I know nothing about my father. I know he married my mother and was a wizard. That's it. I don't know how he knew Layla, I don't know where my father came from or if I have grandparents. I definitely don't know what mission he took that forced my family into hiding and caused him to disappear. Neither Jiraiya or Layla would ever tell me anything. And with good reason. Makarov replied sternly as he folded his arms. Your father is a complicated man with an even more complicated life. Both in the past and present. So like everyone else you're gonna keep secrets from me? Now don't go throwing accusations around. Both Layla and Jiraiya withheld truths from you for your own safety. You're still just a child, my boy. A child who has mastered two extremely powerful magics. Naruto snapped back with fire behind his eyes, which did make Makarov chuckle. Mastering a magic and becoming a master in its application are two completely different things. And I'm afraid you're far behind an actual master in practice. Especially when compared to your father. Naruto remained silent as he was smart enough to know the master was correct. Even if the truth sparked a good deal of frustration within himself. Still I sympathize with you Naruto. Makarov began softly as he closed his eyes. You've experienced far too much loss for someone your age, but yet you still push forward and fight against the impossible. You're just like your father in so many ways that it terrifies me. I've hardly known you, but it's like stepping back in time with your father once again. And why does that terrify you? Makarov sighed. Because your father, despite being a noble man with good intentions, always jumped headfirst into everything. I mean this anema situation you and young Jelil are undertaking is the kind of world disaster level situation your father would find himself in. And I can only guess the reasons why you would take up such a dangerous quest with no actual experience are exactly the same reasons as your father. I'm not like my father. I'm not helping Jelil out of the kindness of my heart or desire to save the world. My reasons are completely selfish. Naruto replied, but was quickly taken back by the older wizard's booming laughter. By the gods your Minato made over 1,000 times. Naruto gritted his teeth. What is so funny? Wiping a tear from his eye, Makarov's face shifted into a more serious expression. Just tell me the girl's name. What? Forcing himself to keep a serious expression, Makarov pointed to the wall. Where Naruto saw the same picture his father had shown him all those years ago. A picture that held the younger versions of both his parents within its frame, along with other wizards of fairy tales past. Like I asked my boy. What's her name? For your father the answer was Milkovich. Lowering his head, Naruto quickly realized the master was right about him. Lucy Hertfilia. The young wizard mumbled softly, which made Makarov smile. Layla's child huh? The world is a funny place is it not? Naruto was annoyed by the man's response, as once again it just hinted more to the past involving his father and Layla. A past he knew nothing about. She's precious to me. Without Lucy I would have never got over my mother and older sister's deaths. Our parents knowing each other may have brought us together, but our bond is deeper than just our parents. Naruto paused on his words and felt the slightest pain within his chest. Or at least it was. Makarov nodded. Have you spoken with her since the day the incident happened? Jiraiya told you about that. He is in the business of giving information. Naruto snorted. When it's convenient. When it comes to keeping you safe. Makarov corrected. Well if you two are allowed secrets just know Lucy will be mine to keep. So that's a no then on talking to her. Makarov replied back, which did make Naruto's eye twitch in response. Giving the seasoned wizard his answer. I'm keeping my distance. Naruto grumbled with annoyance under his tone. If it's so dangerous for me to be known publicly as Naruto Namikaze. Then I'm not placing Lucy in danger. Not unless I'm confident in my ability to keep her safe. And besides that, there are the other complications of our relationship. First off the issue of Lucy thinking I'm a killer, which isn't a lie. You're not a killer. Makarov cut in with anger and authority that genuinely caught the young blonde off guard. You never intended to kill that man and I won't stand for you calling yourself a killer. Naruto nodded at the man, but still hung his head in shame. There is also the fact I left Lucy alone and wasn't there for when Layla passed. People can be forgiven for their mistakes. Never forget that my boy and don't choose a path you regret. Some precious bonds are worth the effort and risk to keep them. Thank you master, but I'd rather die than be the reason Lucy gets hurt or worse. Then like you said. Get stronger to protect her. Makarov proposed with a simple smile. I know I'm young, but don't confuse my age for ignorance. My father was one of the strongest within all of Fiori and he still lost my mother, sister and Layla. Hell for all I know he is dead as well. Being strong can't protect everyone. Actually my boy we will never know as your father was never around to see if he was strong enough to protect them. He was always running and fighting a battle within the shadows, which is a path you're walking down. What are you getting at? Perhaps if Minato would have leaned on others more and made better choices, things would have worked out differently. Most certainly you could agree him hiding everyone and shouldering all his burdens alone was a poor choice. I know Jiraiya, Layla, myself and many others would have helped years ago if he would have let us. After all, you experienced firsthand the impact having Layla in your life had. So imagine being raised like that from the start. It's rather pointless at this point to talk about what ifs, master. Yes, but it's not pointless to learn a lesson from your father's actions. Naruto folded his arms and lifted his brow. So what? Are you telling me to lean on others more? You have a large group of people behind you currently and within Fairy Tail that number will only grow. I'm sure you've already seen your mother's student. I have. I hold no resentment for Gray, but I won't be going out of my way to talk to him. I'll keep him at the same distance as everyone else. Even young Wendy. I don't want to push anyone away. I hope you know that, master, but I'm tired of losing people. Naruto, I see such a bright and brilliant young man in front of me. One who is just as talented as his father. Unfortunately, like your father, you believe distancing yourself is the best way to keep someone. However, all you're doing is losing the people around you and squandering the time you could have had. Then what should I do? Follow my father's example? Hide myself like Jiraiya wants? Or just say to hell with it all? For now, play the role of Menma and get stronger. Get yourself to a point where you can at least protect yourself. Then when you feel like you're ready, take a path different from your father. But when will I know I'm ready? Trust me, kid. You'll know when the time is right, but if that answer isn't good enough, how about a deal? What kind of deal are we talking about, master? Makarov gave his new wizard a cheeky grin. If you become an S-class wizard and then introduce me to a girlfriend who you truly love, then I'll tell you every damn thing I know about your father. His past and his present for that matter. Really, master? Naruto grumbled with annoyance. That's my deal, Naruto. Take it or leave it. I can understand being an S-class wizard, but why do I have to get a girlfriend? Because that will place you right at the same fork in the road as your father. However, when that time comes, hopefully you will have grown enough to make a better choice than Minato. Just maybe when you have a bond that deep you won't follow your father. Instead you will take the road to happiness instead of isolation and misery. So how about it? Do we have a deal? I'll take the deal, master. Makarov grinned ear to ear and motioned to the door. Then let's start your journey as a fairy tale wizard. Placing his mask back to conceal his identity, Naruto nodded and dropped the runes around the room. After you, master. 1 year later, X778. Walking down the main street of Magnolia, Naruto was currently returning to the place he had called home for the last year, Fairy Tail. He had been gone the last several weeks on a few A-class missions and closed a few anima portals. Leaving the coin pouch within his requip space a little heavier and his goal on saving Earthland growing closer by the day. Yet as he traversed the streets of Magnolia, many onlookers whispered and pointed at the masked wizard. Considering within the last year Naruto, or how he was known to the public, Menma, had earned a rather impressive reputation. Rarely did Naruto ever showcase his light magic and mostly stuck to utilizing his rune magic along with the sword Jiraiya had gifted him. This, coupled with his masked identity that left an air of mystery behind him, quickly earned him the title of the Ghost of Fairy Tail. Naruto himself didn't quite care for the attention he was gathering, as it seemed every reporter and sorcerer's weekly wanted to unmask him, which was annoying. However, if it wasn't reporters trying to get a peek at his identity, his guildmates were equally as bad. Since a majority of them had tried everything from trying to force his mask off to pressing Wendy for answers. These advances normally resulted in Naruto kicking someone's ass until they were too afraid to test him. Of course, Naruto wasn't the only identity people were obsessed with, as Gel got a fair amount of people trying to unmask him as well. However, Gel's response to these attempts was a simple sleep spell and avoiding the guild for the most part. Two things that Naruto never partook in, as even though he would never admit it, he truly loved the chaos of the guild and the people within it. Yet as Naruto arrived at the doors to Fairy Tail, he pushed the doors open and quietly entered the loud, rambunctious building. Though a single mop of blue hair quickly snapped her gaze at him the moment his scent reached her heightened sense of smell. "Big brother, you're back," Wendy called out happily as she quickly darted directly to the masked boy's side. Wasting no time, throwing herself into Naruto's side and giving him a strong hug. Naruto patted the small girl's head and chuckled softly. "Sorry I took so long. My last quest ended up taking longer than expected." A small white cat poking herself from Wendy's shoulder, Naruto was quickly met with a disapproving gaze. "Honesty, Menma, would it be so hard to send word that you would be late returning home? You had Wendy worried sick." Naruto, slightly cringing under his mask, held his tongue at the talking cat. A few months ago, Wendy and Natsu had found 2 eggs that hatched into talking cats, and each cat had taken a liking to one of the dragon slayers. The particular cat with Wendy was Carla, who was rather protective and stern with Wendy, but overall cared for the girl a lot. Carla, it's okay. Both Menma and Mystigan have very important duties and can't always be here for me. Wendy defended in response, which made Naruto smile. Plus Natsu, Happy, Lisana and you have been keeping me out of trouble. Carla huffed in response, while Naruto bent down onto one knee to be eye level with Wendy. Natsu. Keeping you out of trouble. Now I find that hard to believe. Naruto began with a laugh as he gave Carla a friendly pat on the head. But Carla is right. I need to do better as your older brother. Maybe we can go for lunch tomorrow. My treat. That would be wonderful. And maybe a quest too. Wendy replied with stars in her eyes. Sorry kiddo, you know my quests are too dangerous for you. Naruto explained in a stern voice. You're not ready for my kind of missions yet. But do you always gotta take such difficult quests? Naruto sighed. If I plan to make it to S-class then yes. Laxus was selected this year, but I'm going to do everything I can to make S-class next year. I can help. Wendy cried back, as she wanted nothing more than to spend more time with Naruto or Gel. Natsu and Urza both have been helping me with my offensive spells, and my support spells have only gotten better. Maybe one day Wendy. When you're a little bigger. Wendy hung her head in defeat. Okay big bro. Naruto was about to respond to Wendy, but a sudden heat to his backside made him react on instinct. So by twisting his torso, Naruto spun around and grabbed onto the wrist of an individual to his backside. Then using all his strength, Naruto slammed his attacker onto the guild's floor. Then by pulling the person's arm behind their backside, Naruto forcefully placed his knee directly into their spine. Really Natsu? Naruto chuckled in a low voice as he watched the fire magic within the boy's hand disappear. Still trying to get the jump on me? You know if you want an ass kicking you just have to ask. Growling in frustration and wiggling with no success of getting free, Natsu looked over his shoulder to the masked boy. Damn it Menma. How did you know I was coming? I swore Wendy had you distracted. A blue cat floating over the two boys, Naruto smirked under his mask. Well you're as loud as a herd of wild beasts on your feet. Plus your fire magic gives off a sudden heat that is an obvious giveaway. Wouldn't you agree, Happy? Aye sir. Natsu just can't learn he can't fight you or Urza. Naruto snickered and looked back down at Natsu. You're still trying to fight Red too. Damn at this point I think either me or her have given you brain damage at this point. Then let's go for real. I beat you for sure. Natsu declared loudly. Rolling his eyes, Naruto used his free hand to slowly draw a few quick runes onto the boy's back. Rune magic. Heavy binding. Naruto watching the runes glow on the boy's body merely stood upright and folded his arms. Counter offer. You stay right there for a few hours and think about why you should leave me alone. Finding an overbearing weight pressing him onto the floor, Natsu glared at Naruto. Just wait till I get up. I'll sock you good jerk. Naruto rolling his eyes looked over at Wendy. You wouldn't have something to gag him do you? Nope. Naruto sighed. Oh well, I'm going to go find the master. Can you make sure that hothead doesn't hurt himself? Wendy giggled and gave the older wizard a salute. Can do. Nodding and walking off, Naruto received a few waves from several wizards and shouts of recognition. However, Naruto only gave small gestures back and kept his eyes towards the guild's bar, where the master was found lazily sipping on some beer with a tinted redness to his face. And Menma. My boy. Glad to see you're back. Makarov yelled drunkenly as Naruto approached, which did make Naruto sigh at his master's drunken state. I'm glad to be back master. Naruto replied as he folded his arms over his chest. All my missions were a perfect success. Having his mug rested against his lips, Makarov smirked with pride at Naruto's results. If I remember right you took multiple A-class quests at once. Nicely done brat. Naruto chuckled under his breath as he watched Makarov down his mug of beer. Just trying to prove I'm ready for S-class. Slapping his mug onto the bar top, Makarov let out a loud laugh. Well someone is aiming high and at a rather quick pace. Thus doing my part of the deal, master. Naruto replied as he pointed one finger to the side of forehead and tapped his mask. Don't forget your end. Makarov snorted. I remember brat, but making S-class was only half of the bargain. What have you done about the other half of our deal? I'm taking one problem at a time. Naruto grumbled in response, which made Makarov laugh back. It's not that funny master. For my amusement it is. Makarov shouted back. Well I'm glad I can be a source of entertainment, but I'm trying my best master. Give me a chance to prove I'm S-class material. Let me take at least one S-class job. Makarov frowned. Not this conversation again. Naruto nodded. Absolutely. I've proven that A-class quests are too easy. Just let me take one S-class job. I won't let you down. You need to be S-class in order to take an S-class quest or have an S-class wizard with you. Unfortunately Gilderts isn't around. But I am. Came the sly voice of the master's own grandson, Laxus Dreyer, who casually moved himself into the conversation by taking a seat at the bar. Naruto glanced at his fellow blonde. He himself had very little interactions with Laxus, as Naruto was 11 and Laxus was 4 years older at 15. Laxus also showed little interest in others within the guild and mostly watched the guild from the sidelines. Only ever getting involved with his group of friends consisting of Fried, Justine, Evergreen and Bixlow. Are you saying you take me on an S-class mission? Naruto asked with curiosity behind his tone, while Laxus smirked. I might. The lightning-scarred boy replied as he produced a mission request out for Naruto to see. The Magic Council sent out a request to all S-class wizards within Ishigure. Only main requirement is the need for a team of 5 wizards, with one of those 5 being an S-class wizard. Absolutely not. Makarov shouted in defiance as he glared at the two boys. I know what damned quest that is and none of you are going. Especially you Menma. Well, saying that makes me want to go even more. Naruto replied back loudly. Come on Gramps, it's just a simple recon mission. We don't even have to fight or do anything dangerous. Laxus argued back. And why are you so keen on going all of a sudden? Makarov grumbled at his grandson. Last I heard you had no interest in this request. Just trying to foster the future of my guild. That and see under Menma's mask. You want to see my face? Naruto grumbled in response. It's a fair trade for getting taken on an S-class quest. You get your quest and I have something to hold over you. Naruto narrowed his eyes under his mask. So that's your aim, huh? Afraid I'm climbing the ranks too fast. Laxus got a rather dangerous gleam behind his eyes and lightning sparked around his torso. Not at all. None of this matters. Makarov roared loud enough to silence the entire guild, which in turn placed every eye onto their conversation. Neither of you are taking that quest. Laxus, you're a newly appointed S-class mage. You're not ready to lead a dangerous mission. Especially with 3 people like Fried, Evergreen and Bixlow who are not ready for S-class missions. And Menma, you're not stepping foot near that mission. Strong enough or not, I refuse you permission above everyone else. Laxus clicked his teeth and stood up. Whatever, old man. The rebellious teen muttered before stomping off. Naruto, equally as upset, turned off towards the guild's exit and kicked the doors open in anger. Making his way back to his apartment with a sour mood and his mind pondering over why Makarov was so against him taking the mission. Wondering just how dangerous an S-class quest really is, or if there was a hidden reason behind the master denying him the quest. Naruto was leaning towards the latter, but couldn't figure out why. All Naruto did know was that Makarov, like many others, kept a great deal of secrets. Something that pissed Naruto off more than anything. This is ridiculous. Naruto growled loudly as he quickly approached his apartment. Yet as he drew closer he caught a glimpse of Laxus leaning against his door. A sight that only added on to Naruto's growing frustration. What do you want? Holding out a request, Laxus grinned like the devil about to strike a deal. The quest is in 1 month. Keep things to yourself and we can take it without Gramps knowing. You're wanting to go behind the master's back. Laxus shrugged his shoulders. I've learned it's better to ask forgiveness than permission with that old geezer. Plus when we complete the mission he won't be able to complain. And in return I'll have to show you my face. Laxus chuckled. So I take it you're in? Absolutely. Naruto replied without hesitation. I'm tired of people hiding things from me. I want to know why the master is so against me taking this mission. Well, in that case take this. Laxus replied as he tossed the request to Naruto and started to walk off. Your payment for me bringing you along can come later. Walking into his apartment and opening the rolled paper, Naruto felt his heart rate increase as he saw the writing on the request. Urgent S-class request. Objective. Infiltrate the Alvarez Empire and acquire any sensitive information possible. Where the hell is the Alvarez Empire? Naruto mumbled as he walked into his apartment and took a seat. Eyeing the request over and over, trying to figure out what made this mission so difficult. And why is the old man so against me going there? Groaning in frustration, Naruto dropped the request within his hands onto the ground and tossed his head back. Then by grabbing his mask, Naruto removed the part of his attire that concealed his identity. I can't ask the master or Jiraiya. Those old farts would figure out what I'm planning on doing. I also can't risk the master catching me researching the place either. Naruto mumbled as he closed his eyes. I guess the best way to find out is by heading there myself. Opening his eyes and noticing a green glow under his clothing, Naruto slightly smiled. That time of the day, huh? Naruto mumbled as he grabbed his necklace and channeled his magic into the crystal. Then for the next several seconds Naruto stayed silent and kept his thoughts to Lucy. Then just as soon as the crystal started glowing, Naruto frowned as he watched the light die down. Something that made Naruto stop pushing his magic into his necklace and allowed the jewelry to fall against his chest. I'm gonna get stronger, Lucy. I'm not there yet, but I won't stop. Naruto mumbled to no one besides himself. I just hope when the time comes you'll forgive me. 1 month later. Standing at the side of a large passenger ship, Naruto leaned against the railing of the ship that was bobbing against the ocean waves. The hot ocean breeze blasting against his exposed face, as he wasn't wearing his usual mask. Instead, Naruto wore a simple pair of black sunglasses to partially conceal his identity. Yet the lack of his mask wasn't the only change to his normal outfit, as he was playing the role of a tourist on vacation. So his sword had to be sent into his requip space, and his usual clothing was swapped for a pair of blue shorts and a red sleeveless button-up shirt. With his fairy tale guild mark wrapped in bandages to further conceal his identity as a wizard. Keeping the only item of his usual attire as his necklace that was slapping against his chest from the wind. Nervous? A beepy voice asked from Naruto's side. Glancing to Laxus, who was dressed like someone on vacation with shorts and a beach button-up. Naruto fought the urge to roll his eyes. Not really. I know nothing about this vacation spot. Joining Naruto, who was trying to speak in a non-suspicious way, Laxus gazed out to the side of land in the distance. Well, that makes 2 of us. How wonderful. Where are the others? Laxus kept his voice low. They took off and are making arrangements in case we want to end our vacation early. Naruto nodded at the response. So what is on our agenda? I was thinking about sightseeing at the capital. That's a reasonable place to start. How long do you think until Gramps knows we are here? Laxus sighed and closed his eyes. If he hasn't put 2 and 2 together already. I'm sure he will soon. He's gonna be pissed, isn't he? Laxus looked at the younger blonde with a confident smirk. Not after he hears how our time here went. Naruto kept quiet and simply looked forward. Completely unaware of the living nightmare that was awaiting him on the shores of the Alvarez Empire. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.